This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Karina Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different cues.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Karina Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 with Republican gubernatorial candidate Bobby Charles. Well, let's pivot to education. You mentioned metrics. As we know, Maine's student performance has dropped into bottom tier rankings nationally. What do you see as a core reason behind this decline?
Such a good question. And as you might or might not know, once you put affordability at the top of the list and then you put public safety behind it, education comes right in there as number 3. Before I answer your question directly, I'll say I come from a family of teachers. My grandmother taught and was a principal. My aunt taught at Winthrop for years, decades. My mother taught for 40 years, first grade, second grade. She was a remedial reading teacher. One of my sisters teaches, another's involved in education off the coast. My brother teaches high school math. I've taught for 3 years. It is a tragedy and a travesty that we are looking at an education system in the state of Maine that was at the top of the nation. When I got through my high school career with World War II, Korean, and Vietnam vets teaching, along with women in particular who had made a career of it, they didn't just come in for the money and they didn't come in for 2 or 3 years. They stayed it forever, like my mother. I came out with education that was not just knowing on the metrics, math and reading and history and science and languages, enough, by the way, out of an unaccredited high school to get me, and I worked my way through all of these, but to get me through Dartmouth College, a master's in economics from Oxford, and Columbia Law School. Why? Coming out of rural Maine, you got a good, grounded education. You also got a moral education. You were expected to do the right things. In that day and age, we had church school. We did go to church every Sunday. We also had Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout at 13. You were expected to go, in my mom's phrase, go make something of yourself. But you were also expected to do the right thing because we had a generation before us, they call it the greatest generation, that taught us what the right thing to do is. So when you look at our education system, and let's look at the metrics, 75% of our fourth graders, according to the NAEP study, cannot read at level. They are not reading. And 74% of our eighth graders cannot do multiplication and division. Now, you're not going to get a job at BIW if you can't read and you can't do math. You're not going to be able to start your own company. You're not going to become a great and successful car salesman. You're not going to be able to communicate with people. You're not going to be able to become a Maine guide. You're not going to be able to go into the military and succeed. I look at all this and say, we are literally the poster child for doing it all wrong. The unions have dictated indoctrination. The Department of Education in this state, which might very well be shrunk by half or more. We don't need 1,000 administrators. We have more administrators in this state than New York State does. It's a disgrace. What we've done is we've turned education into indoctrination, and we imagine we're going to get good kids out of that. No, there's an opportunity cost. If you're going to teach them all to be little activists and to question whether they're a boy or a girl, and you're going to spend all your time distracting them with these really immoral things and things that just take them off track, there's an opportunity cost. You lose the time that is critical to learning skills that will make their lives successful. I was talking to somebody the other day raising money on the phone, which you have to do in this, and everybody can go to bobbyformaine.com and contribute something. But I'm talking to this guy, and I mentioned this data point about fourth graders not reading. He was an educator, and he said, Bobby, you realize that if you can't read in fourth grade, you're on track for a life of crime. And I thought, God, I never really thought about it that way. How do we fix that? We remediate. We will literally set up summer programs and get these kids caught back up again. And then we'll set up work training programs with the businesses who are going to come into this state and those that are here that are feeling better because they have no income tax and the property taxes have gone down. It's a virtuous cycle. You get them out here helping link back. You put the trades back into the high schools again. We had trades in all our high schools. We don't now. You could work under the hood of a car in Winthrop High School or Maranacook High School. You could learn to weld, which, by the way, is a lot harder than it looks. You could learn woodworking. You could learn electricians. You could learn to be a plumber. All those things. I was learning plumbing when I was 12, 13, 14. We have to get people back to having options again, feeling good about themselves, wanting to take home a paycheck. And all of that starts in the education system. I guarantee you this, mark my words, I will be in every high school in this state. There are 165 of them. I will go speak with all of them. And my message to all of them will be this simple. You need to imagine what you want to be in life. That's what we were told. Imagine what you might want to be in life. I want you to envision it. You want to be an astronaut? Okay. You want to be a professional baseball player? You want to be a mechanic? You want to be an engineer? You want to be a ship driver? You want to be a pilot? I don't care. Maybe you want to be a Maine guide. Maybe you want to just run your own company. First thing you have to do is envision something. We are telling these kids envision nothing. We're telling them conform and just get through with your 11 credits and go take a check from the state. That is a bad idea. And at the end of the day, we need to give them this idea that their minds and hearts given to them by God are open to think about what you want to do. Then believe with everything you've got that it can be you. So if you want to be an astronaut, I want you to believe that it could be you. And what's the third piece? The third piece of that equation is you need to work your tail off. You need to work, and understand that doing the hard thing is how you grow. Every stage of your life, no matter what, and particularly when you're coming out early and you got a lot of energy, do the hard thing, do the tough thing, do the right thing, and you will find that you will succeed. I will tell you what we've done to answer your question is we've pulled all this imagination and emphasis on hard work and principles and being your best self and understanding that you've got an early opportunity to help define your whole future. We've taken that away from these kids. We've told them all you have to do is get by. We've told them all you have to do is take a check from the state. That is not what we were taught when we were kids. And I'll give you a little concrete example to close it out, how education really works at its best. By the way, my mother, who again taught for 40 years, she was the mother probably to 50 or 100 kids over the course of that time because she gave them hope. She cared about them. And these educators, they cared about us. And I'm not against the teachers. The teachers need to be given their freedom again. They need to be given freedom and good pay and high morale. We have one of the worst morales of teachers in the country. I actually think you could end up with an independent union instead of having these two national unions foist all their Marxism down on us. Why doesn't the state support contracts with another union, like an independent union where you're actually favoring the kids and the teachers instead of the administrators and the union people? The top 8 union people take down $200,000 to $250,000 and a teacher starts at $40,000. So for every administrator, we could get maybe 5 or 6 new teachers, or we could elevate their pay. Teachers are the cornerstone, but we have to teach the teachers too. We have to give them the tools to get this done. And I come back to this little story about growing up in Wayne, Maine. In Wayne, Maine, there was a little elementary school, and it had, in my growing up years, it had 4 rooms. Kindergarten was in one. The second one had first and second. The next one had third and fourth, and the last one fifth and sixth. So when we were in 5th and 6th grade, before we got sent over to a different town for middle school and high school, we were told, literally, you can do anything you want. You just need to work hard at it. So you might not like math, but you need to learn math. You might not like to read. I didn't like to read. I was not a brilliant kid. I was a very hard worker, but I was not a brilliant kid. My mother, thank God, was a remedial reading teacher because it took me, I read late. I don't know when you first learned, maybe 1st grade. I was probably 2nd or 3rd. And you needed to learn. And she would sit me down and say, you have to read half an hour out of a Reader's Digest book out loud before you go out to play. And one day she said, you're free to go out. I said, no, I have to finish this story. She said, then I knew from that point on, you're going to be okay. But in that little classroom of 5th and 6th graders, which might have been 12 or 15 kids, we were all told, go out and do what your heart tells you to do and work as if it all depended on you. And you know what we did? In that little class, one guy, he couldn't sit at a desk for the rest of his life behind a blue screen. It would kill him. He is a master Maine guide working with wounded warriors. Another guy wanted to be a musician. I don't know if anybody in this listening audience knows the band, the Boneheads. He became a leading guitarist in the Boneheads, a pretty big band in New England, and he builds houses on the side. Happy. Follow your dreams. He was also an Eagle Scout, by the way. 2 others I'll just mention to you. One was a guy who wanted to be a professional baseball player. Perry was his name. His dad was our baseball coach in Babe Ruth. You know, you have Babe Ruth and American Legion and stuff. His dad was a carpenter, but he was our baseball coach. So instead of telling his son, no, you can't do it, he said, well, if you're going to be a professional baseball player, you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to spend a lot of hours at it. You're going to have to figure out what's that 10,000 hour rule. You're going to have to go out there and really work at it. So Perry did. And he played for the University of Maine, and he had an unbelievable batting average. He was a shortstop, too, and shortstops are pretty quick on their feet. Somewhere around junior, senior year, he got frustrated. He was impatient. He wanted to play every minute of the game. And then the coach said, no, you got to stay on the bench. It's the way it works sometimes. Well, he wasn't going to stay on the bench for the rest of his life. So what did he do? He joined the Marine Corps. And he is today a highly decorated F-18 fighter pilot. Another kid, Carl. Carl was our class clown. Bubba, we called him. Everybody's got a Bubba. We had a Bubba. He was brilliant, funny, never applied himself. So when some of us went off to college or got a good job and whatnot, he signed up, enlisted in the Air Force. And he was a grease monkey and learned a little avionics working under airplanes. And he was up at Plattsburgh. And so he joined at 17. Somewhere around the age of 24 and a half, he said to his commanding officer, hey, what would it take to fly one of these things? And the commanding officer basically laughed him out of the room and said, you lost that chance because you didn't apply yourself. You didn't get a college degree. You'd need a college degree. It would have to be at the top. It would have to be in something that applied, and you'd need it by your 27th birthday. And he's already 24 and a half. He said, you'd need a 4-year degree. So he said, you lost the chance. So he said, there are some people, and we were among that crowd, that don't tell them they can't do it. Tell me I can't do it, it's the first thing I'm going to do. So what did he do? He went off and he got a 4-year degree in engineering in 2.5 years with straight A's, and he said, I want to fly. Carl flew stratotankers in the first Gulf War, and he finished his career as a general officer select, a general, dual-hatted, in charge of all the C-17s in the world, and a Black Hawk pilot in charge of all the search and rescue operations at night for our special operators in Afghanistan. And he has 41 saves.
That's incredible.
What does it mean? It means encourage these kids to be whatever it is they've got the power to be. And that's what I will do as governor.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk. We are having a discussion with Republican gubernatorial candidate, Bobby Charles.
As you know, living in this state, we have a high electricity bill. How are you going to lower the cost?
If you were going down through my list of 1, 2, 3, 4, this would be number 4, which really ought to be number 1, but they all ought to be number 1. Again, this is the house that got hit by a hurricane. Our energy costs are not only high because we live in a cold place, but our energy costs jumped 36% plus in the last 1 year. So they popped up again by another third in just 1 year. They jumped higher than any state in the United States, and that jump was twice the second state. So now you got to start being a doctor here and diagnose the problems. What is it about Maine that has caused us to be paying these unbelievable and unsustainable high energy costs? And I have a 20-point plan which we have released on how you get the costs down. Jim Lebrecht is working with me and a bunch of other people, and they say, don't say more than 30 or 40%. But I'll be honest with you, I think we can even get deeper. So I'll say my goal is to get us down by at least 30%. So how do you do that? The first thing you do is you get rid of this net energy billing, which is a complete idiot scheme. It didn't work. We've driven energy costs from 5, 6, 7 cents a kilowatt hour up to 27 cents a kilowatt hour. You get rid of all the solar subsidies. And you say, why would you get rid of the solar subsidies? If you love solar and you're a millionaire and you want to just put solar all over your yard and your roof, God bless you. Go do it. Free market. But don't make me, 95% of this state, pay for the 5% that literally put this stuff on for virtue signaling or because they're afraid the world's coming to an end or because they're a summer person and they've got lots of gobs of money and they don't mind doing that. The average Mainer is not someone who has a lot of disposable income. Our average income in this state is $42,000. If it costs $30,000 to put a solar roof on and you'll get $10,000 back, how many people who make $42,000 a year are going to throw down $30,000? No, it's wealthy people. And who is going to get the cost of that? My bill. I have to pay for that. And everybody that lives in a trailer park in the state of Maine is paying for those rich people to get their solar cells. That is wrong. It is wrong from a moral perspective. It is wrong from an energy perspective. It is wrong from a cost perspective. Now look at wind. You're punching huge amounts of money into these wind towers that sustainability over time, they are not, what is the phrase? It's their capacity. They're only being used, they've got 30% capacity and the solar cells have 15% capacity. But oil coming into your house or natural gas has 100% capacity. It works at night. It works on days and weeks when there's no wind. It's the strangest thing. Crazy good. So what are we going to do? We're going to complete the Constitution pipeline. It's very simple. We're going to open it up. Instead of killing all these fossil fuels where we have a wealth of fossil fuels, instead of all these Democrats, Pingree, Mills, Bellows, Troy Jackson, they are all against fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are part of what made America great. And we have a huge reservoir of them. Should we buffer the coal production? Yeah, we should. But let's complete that Constitution pipeline, get natural gas here in the state of Maine. Let's link in the Iroquois pipeline, which also lowers our costs by bringing lots of natural gas here. Let's take the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, which has been politicized to the nines, and just kill it. Get an engineer and an economist maybe doing oversight. Stop making them give away things that nobody can afford and nobody wants. And then start methodically looking at how you bring costs down. Again, there's a 20-point plan for doing it, and there's a lot of ways you can do it. We're going to get out of these regional agreements that aren't doing any good for us at all. We're going to stop rewarding bad behavior. We're going to start rewarding good behavior. What else is in that? I think you look very seriously, about 2 years from now, these small reactor nuclear plants will come online. We could be the model state for how a city or a town or a mall even, you have very high efficiency. They're incredibly safe. They're modular and they are very affordable. Imagine if we could do what South Dakota or North Dakota have done, where you find a kind of energy and you're actually able to give rebates back to people. So they're not paying, through the nose. Their bills come very, very low, and then you might even rebate people. We could be the model. I'm actually talking to companies right now who could come into the state and show us how to put up small modular nuclear reactors. And there are people like Reagan Paul that have advocated for this. A lot of Republicans have advocated for it. It's safe. It's efficient. Again, we could be the model. At the end of the day, everything in this room took energy to make. Just listening to this transmission is an energy-sucking thing. So it's not just that your heating bill comes down. It's not just that your electricity bill comes down. The cost of everything comes down. By the way, what does that do? It also encourages businesses to come back to the state or to relocate or to locate in the state. Energy is one of those areas where we've done, again, just about everything opposite from what would create an affordable, sustainable, easy energy policy in the state. And I will say, too, I'm not against renewables. I think if they can match the market, if they can be made efficient, then please, by all means, do them. And remember, we're the most heavily forested state in the country. When I was growing up, we did not have electric heat in my home. We had 3 wood stoves, and every fall we would cut maybe 4 or 5 cord of wood, and we would cut them 2 years in advance. We had 2.5 big wood sheds, and we'd fill them up with wood, and it was great. We kept 3 stoves going all the time. I never knew that everybody didn't do that. And at the end of the day, a lot of Mainers did do that. So let's remember that wood is a great resource. In the final analysis, energy costs have to be brought down. And I won't spend a whole lot of time on it right now, but there's a 20-point plan. It is well within reach. We need to start doing what I tell those kids to do. Envision it, believe it, and work for it.
So Karina and I have a friend who is a 4th-generation fisherman, and his son's a 5th generation. What are your plans to help out the Maine lobster industry?
Excellent question again, and it doesn't just relate to fishermen and lobstermen. It's about getting the regulation, the overregulation of this state down. But let me just pause for a minute, kind of off the cuff here, and talk about fishermen and lobstermen. When I was younger, I sterned a little bit on a lobster boat. Not a lot, but a little. Enough to know in the dead of the winter that you don't want your boot filled up with water and how to band and all that. But lobstermen, we forget, we have 5,000 lobstermen in this state, probably 3,600 who are active. And that, by the way, is a third of what we had when I was a kid. So they've been overregulated. They've been regulated to death. You've got a bunch of hacks or bureaucrats telling them what to do. They've got to file reports every 2 weeks. They got GPS on them. They got 1,000 regulations. It's death by 1,000 cuts. In the old days, as you mentioned about multiple generations, you'd have a boat that got handed down to the son and on down the stream, nowadays to daughters. The end of the day, I say that the sea is a harsh mistress. It is a hard, hard job. I was just up at the Eastport Memorial for Fishermen, and there are hundreds of names who've died at sea. We've probably all told got about 13,000 fishermen in the state. We need to start thinking about taking care of the people who work hard and not coddling the people who don't work at all. And in addition to that, we need to look at, in every single sector, farmers, foresters, loggers, lobstermen, fishermen, go through every single major sector in the state and look at, and I'm going to pull business people and lobstermen and others into this process. And within a fairly short period of time, maybe 6 months, maybe less, you get me the list of the top 100 regulations, and we'll start eliminating 10 to 20 of them a week for the duration of my 4 years. We are going to get rid of the regs. And this is exactly what we did when I worked with Newt Gingrich. We had the contract with America. We literally, every single week, we redlined regulations every week, dozens and dozens a week. That's what Ronald Reagan did. It's not just high taxes. It's not just the affordability issue. It's not just high energy. And it's not just public safety and education. It's the regulation of everything to the extreme. It's funny, Reagan, I worked 3 years with him off and on. He used to say, if it moves, they'll tax it. If it keeps moving, they'll regulate it. And if it stops moving, they'll subsidize it. We're doing all that in spades. In fact, if he showed up here tomorrow, he'd go, oh my God, Bobby, what's happened to this state? Lobstermen are overregulated. I would say governors appoint people to things. I would think we should have lobstermen running the Lobster Commission, not a bureaucrat or a hack. We do not need people who know nothing about the field except maybe they studied under a microscope to be telling lobstermen who have to go out there every day and risk their lives and do it and are not getting rich, by the way. They need to be rewarded for their labor and they need to be understood. And the best way to do that is to bring lobstermen in. Billy Bob's a lobsterman and he's in the legislature. Well, we need to bring more lobstermen into the administration. I want to bring young people into the administration, and I think young lobstermen would be a great place to start. Fisheries, the same thing. You need to get the regs out. We need to pull out of these agreements, these interstate agreements that are not serving us. whether it's in energy or whether it's in overregulation of fisheries. We also need to work with Donald Trump's administration, and I know a number of people there, and I've been down in his White House multiple times. We need to have them say, you're right, we're going to pull back on this. No federal regs here, no federal regs there. Just give us the list, Bobby, and we'll get rid of them. And you got to remember, again, it comes back to the multiplier effect with the dollar. The more you regulate somebody and the more you tax them, the less they get of the benefit of their own hard work. I'm not saying you get rid of all regulation. There are some fundamental things that we need to be sure we're doing right. And I will say that lobstermen are the best ones to protect their own futures. They know not to overfish because that's the income that they and their kids are going to have for an awful long time to come. So they want to do that. But we just need to get back to common sense. To be quite honest, overregulation makes no sense at all. It's like barnacles on the bottom of a boat. If you get too many there, it's going to pull the boat down. You're not going to be efficient. Get rid of them. Get rid of the regs. I guess that's number 5, but we'll put them all together at one time and do them together. Overregulation is an epidemic in this state.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk. We are having a discussion with Republican gubernatorial candidate, Bobby Charles. There are several candidates in this race. What differentiates you from the others?
I think this is a really unusual year in the state of Maine. I bumped into somebody the other day that's not running for governor. It was very exciting. We have a great bench on the Republican side, and I really do take to heart Reagan's 11th commandment. You will not hear me saying anything negative about any Republican. Thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican. And why is that? I played football in high school, and I was a terrible football player, but I learned a few things. And one is that if you leave a hole in the line, they will come through it every single time. And one of the things that we've done, certainly since the LePage years, but as a general matter, is we Republicans are very gritty, and we get out there and we speak our mind. And if we speak it too much in the negative about another Republican, that's what the Democrats use to come back at whoever ends up being the nominee. So I will tell you, we have a very talented bench on the Republican side. Instead of looking at negatives, and everybody's no doubt got something that they can say about somebody else, instead of doing that, my appeal to all of them, and I've literally sat down with all of them at one point or another, is we need to think smart here. And what that means is there's a lot of talent over here. Let's compare our wares. Let's put out there what our experiences in life are. Let's talk about all the good things we bring to this fight. And let's let the Maine people decide on the Republican side who they want to be their gladiator to go after the Democrats. And then, break, let me tell you, the Democrats are the best campaign for the Republicans I have ever seen. They are Bellows and Pingree and King and Jackson and whoever else they throw in this mix. They own all of these problems we have been talking about for the last hour. They own them. They are responsible for them. There is no defense of them. And just to give you a little example of how this really resonates with real people, we are going to crush the Democrats in this cycle. We're going to crush them in legislative races, and we're going to crush them with the gubernatorial, which will give us the constitutional officers and get us back on track to a normal Norman Rockwell Maine. But one of the funniest things that's happened in the last week is I have to call these people for money. And I'm the Jimmy Stewart guy. And I say, look, I'm not Mr. Potter. I'm Jimmy Stewart. I look at my heating bill, too, just like you. And I call. Normally, these are Republicans. Well, somewhere along the line, I ended up with a Democrat on my list. And I called. And this guy says, within 5 or 6 seconds of my getting out, hey, I'm Bobby Charles and I'm a leading candidate and this and that, he says, well, I like Janet Mills. I said, really? My immediate instinct is I'm just going to hang up and go to the next call. But then I decided, you know what? I'm going to use this as an educational moment for me. I said, don't hang up. I said, I just want to ask you a serious question. And I said, because I take you to be saying something truthful to me, and I've never run for anything in my life. I want to understand why you think that she has been a good governor. I want you to explain it to me. So I said, if you would, just take a minute and tell me one policy that you like that she has put forward in this state. 25 seconds later, a complete silence. He says, this phone call's over. Goodbye. And I thought, there you go. Quite honestly, that's the point. They have screwed up everything. So no matter who they nominate, we're looking at a Democratic Party that has essentially become fractured in a way that has not been fractured this way since maybe 1968 on the national level. The National Party is gone, I would say 60-40, maybe 70-30 in the direction of radical, progressive, socialist / neo-communism. And they don't know that they're Marxists because they've never read Marx, because they don't read. But what they do is they're doing exactly what the Marxists and the Bolsheviks did, and actually even what the brown shirts did in the early 30s. They're justifying violence. I mean, what did Bangor just do? They elected someone who was a murderer. Are you serious? And you hear these justifications for, well, speech is violence, so therefore I can kill you. No, I'm sorry. No. That is not the way America works. So what's happened is the Marxist disease has infected the National Democrat Party. That's why you see someone like Mandami show up. He's an anti-Semitic Muslim communist who wants to run New York, which is a predominantly very heavily Jewish and largely freedom-loving, independent-minded group of people. People are just being hoodwinked. They're being basically trotted down the rose path until they fall off the end of it. And I will tell you right now, consolidated, concentrated power, whether you call it Marxism, whether you call it Marxist-Leninism, whether you call it Maoism, whether you call it communism or socialism or fascism, always fails. I worked for Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan proved it to us again and again and again, and so does history. Concentrated power leads to abuse, or as one of the great writers said, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We're in an environment right now where Maine is essentially being taken over by the progressive left, and it is fracturing the Maine Democrat Party. So you've got Bellows, who's moving harder and harder left. You've got this Graham Plattner, who first was a communist, and then he was a Nazi, and now he's not either of them. And God bless, get your head together before you run for the Senate. But in any event, you've got people out there. You've got Pingree, who essentially owns all the failures of Mills. She's a carbon copy of Mills. You got Troy Jackson, who's got some troubles of his own and is basically an old politician on the Democrat side. In fact, how ironic if someone like he or King, who again has really no history in politics, but in any event, those become your standard bearers for something that looks moderate, which is now 30 or 20% of your party. What's going to happen in this state is the Democrats have fractured so badly that even when I talk in Portland and York and places to the south, I have conservative Democrats quietly coming up to me, and of course independents, and they're saying, Bobby, I'm going to vote for you. I think you're going to win. And here's why. I don't recognize my party anymore. I don't understand who they are. They're not saying things that make sense to me. And you're saying you want to get taxes down. I need that. My property taxes to the south, to the north, everywhere. My commercial property is falling in value because there's so much public safety issues, so much drug trafficking and education. Yeah, I got my kids out there too, and I don't have time to homeschool, even though, frankly, there's been a 30% increase in homeschooling in this state in the last 2 years. And I need my public education system back because I don't have the money to put my kids in private school. Everything that could go wrong is going wrong in the state of Maine at more or less the same time. It's an accumulated problem like the barnacles. But at this moment, Democrats who call themselves, I used to say JFK or Truman Democrats, but even if you're a Bill Clinton Democrat, you got nowhere to go right now. The best thing you can do is either stay home, which they're doing. Registrations are down for Democrats, up for Republicans, or you can vote for the common sense Republican that honestly is going to solve some of your problems so that if you can project forward to some time, let's say 2 years into my administration, you're going to see two Democrats walking down a Portland street with various things here and there and purple hair, and they're going to be talking to each other and going, you know, the guy is a Republican, but damn, you know, he did do that stuff he said he was going to do. I don't see those needles here anymore, and so-and-so's gotten better, and I can afford my property taxes, and my kid's going to stay in the state now, and I actually had a pay increase, and man, I love the fact that I don't have income taxes to pay, and the kids are finally getting a good education. Truth, real solutions, is powerful stuff. Republicans stand for real solutions. I am going to give the best of my life effort to this. This is my life mission right now, and I am dedicated to the idea that we can fix this state. I know it because I've fixed things that were bigger than this. Ran a $2 billion operation, trained all the Iraqi police. I trained the Afghan police, Plan Colombia. I worked with Dave Petraeus. I worked with Colin Powell. I worked with Reagan. We can fix this, and we will fix this. And the reason we will is because the Democrats are completely morally, economically, leadership bankrupt.
Before we let you go, what would you like to say to the voters of Maine?
I'm going to start with Republicans and then go to independents and Democrats. To Republicans, I say, do not be disillusioned. We've gone through some dark times, and you look around, this pushing of boys into girls' sports, and my youngest is a girl, and we're looking at dark times, dark backdrop. Do not allow yourself to buy into the narrative that we always lose. Instead, look up, look at the horizon. Don't look down at your feet. Look at the horizon and say, yeah, we will. Over that horizon, we will make this happen. What I'm finding all over the state is that there is an unbelievable upsurge in hope. Groups where places, and I was just in Eastport, I don't know how many people were there, but double or triple what people thought were going to be there. That's happening everywhere, every single county. I'll tell you why, because people are saying, you know what, maybe the emperor has no clothes. Maybe that is really true. Maybe it's really true that we are on the right side of history and we should win. And if we work at this, we will win. To Republicans, I say, do just what I tell these kids to do. Envision a Republican legislature, Republican governor, Republican constitutional officers who are methodically working for you night and day, 20 hours a day to get this done, because that's what we'll do. And then believe it can be done, and then believe that you can help make it happen by working hard on this campaign every day, working to get Republicans in there working for your local person, being willing to say, you know what, I'm going to put some skin in the game because everybody else is doing that. That is how Margaret Chase Smith won. That is how Ronald Reagan won. That is how Donald Trump, against all expectations and lawfare being thrown at him and God knows everything under the sun, and he won. Why? Because Americans said, we are sick of this. And in Maine, we are sick of this. I say to Republicans, be energized, be full of hope, because this is really what the future will look like. It will look like what we envision it to look like. And then to Democrats, I say, look at yourself, look at your party. I don't care if you've always voted Democrat. I really don't. I think many parents of Republicans today were Democrats in the FDR era. I want you to look hard at reality. I want to call it the pine box test. In the Vietnam War era, toward the end of the war, all the politicians were saying, everything's great. Everything's great. The economy's great. We're winning the war. And people would see the pine boxes coming home to their neighbors or even to themselves. And they said, you know what? We're not winning the war. Truth cannot be hidden. You can't take that candle and keep it forever under a basket. It's not true. We're not winning. The economy is in deep trouble in this state. Our property taxes, which are the highest in the United States, need to be brought down. Our income tax burden is way too high. It needs to come down. Our school system, which is number 50, or someone says optimistically number 41 in the country, no, it needs to be rebuilt back to that state that it was in, where we were the number one public education system in the country in 1992. Our outcomes were the best. And then we need to get this public safety. We need to get these drug traffickers out of this state. And instead of saying it's okay to have 10,000 overdoses and 600 dead kids, you need to say, I don't want to see a single child die of an overdose. I want you to be on treatment. I will get good treatment organizations into this state. We will reward them. They will be real nonprofits, not fake nonprofits. We have thousands of fake nonprofits that are sucking money off the state. We need to get rid of that and get back to basics. This is Norman Rockwell America. This is like Winston Churchill said, you can kick it to the side, you can step on it, you can try to crush it, but when everything is said and done, the truth is still there. The truth is still there. And we need to be hopeful. And I say to these Democrats, some of whom have actually called me and said, I'm going to vote for you. I also say to independents, whether you're a libertarian or you're someone who's a disaffected Republican or a disaffected Democrat, look at this campaign as the campaign of Bobby Charles, dedicated to the proposition of saving your state. Don't put a label on me. Just say, this guy will solve these problems. I am willing to fight for him. And that's it. And I do encourage people, go to bobbyformaine.com. We have thousands of volunteers already all over this state. We have good people turning out to work for us. And I think it's because they know this is really about solving these problems. I don't need another certificate on my wall. I just need, when the last of my days come, I need to be able to look back and say, I fixed those problems. We did it because we could. Let me add one last thought, because I think it's very important for everybody in the state of Maine. If you believe in the things we're just talking about here, a state that's affordable and safe and cares about our kids. If we do not fix it this time, this state will not be recognizable in 10 years. This is a do or die moment for us. We as Mainers either learn what's happened, educate our neighbors, and resolve that we're going to fight and work to fix this state. Or I swear to you, in 10 years, this place will be inner city Chicago or the Badlands of Philly or the worst parts of D.C. This is everything now. And this group of neo-communists or socialists or whatever they call themselves, they don't give a damn about the future of the state. Half of them are imported and they don't care. We, the people of the state, we the people, have got to stand up and fight for what we actually all know. I don't think there's anything brilliant that got said today. We all know these things to be true. We need to fight for them or we will not recognize our state.
Republican gubernatorial candidate Bobby Charles, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
A real pleasure. Thank you, guys. I love what I do, and I love the people I meet every day, and it's a privilege to be in this process.
You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites guests and candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.